Ryan, same start prompt. If you could just talk a little bit about what the last 6 weeks or so have looked like with you and Bev and now Maria working to prepare for this offseason.
Yeah, it's been incredibly busy. The second that Bev was announced, we started working on what the roster is going to look like for 2024, preparing for the expansion draft, preparing to grow and evolve our roster into the style of play that Bev wants to play. I think that's such an important piece, is bringing in players that Bev feels fits that style of play and how we can transition that into 2024. So from there, we've worked to identify players, have calls with their agents all throughout the holidays. A lot of time spent on the phone and text with agents and things, and then obviously now preparing for the draft. So we feel we're in a really good spot. A lot of stuff that's not been announced yet for certain reasons with processes with the league, with some of our internal stuff, getting contracts signed and things, but those will be coming hopefully as early as next week. So we're excited about where this club's headed, and we're excited to get everybody here on January 22nd to kick off this first season under Bev Yanez.
Questions? Yeah, this being your first full offseason, can you give us kind of your take on just the NWSL draft as a whole? Is it a player acquisition mechanism that you like, or you want Rachel to emphasize, or is it just part of like a bigger picture?
I think the draft's part of a bigger picture. We like the draft in regards to, we spent a lot of time focusing on creating scouting reports and video and analysis, seeing players in person. We think it's an ability to add to our roster, but also it's a lot of assets that can be moved to improve other areas too. So I think it's a little bit more of a holistic approach. You can trade for draft picks to move later. You can trade for draft picks to add players, or you can use them in a selection process.
And then just kind of a higher level offseason question, but if you look at last year, you lost 25% of your goals, and I'm sure you probably even like an extra 5 or 6 more than those that you got in the league. Is that a specific focus going out and trying to acquire goals, or are you looking to try to get players currently on the roster to step up and bring more goals?
Yeah, I think goals are an important piece of it. We're returning 80% of our minutes from 2023 and 2024, and then we're returning 70% of our goals, give or take. I think it's a little bit less. We think adding the players that we're going to is going to help score goals, and that's going to help us be propelled into the playoffs. So we feel really good about where we're at. We know we lost players like Temi and Paige, which are great individuals, and we had a great time with them here in racing, what they built here in Louisville, and we thank them for everything they did, but we're excited for what we're building in the future.
There's been a few changes in the league, salary cap, a few other rule changes. Any that jump out to you as a GM that you think are beneficial, particularly for you guys specifically?
I think when you look at the global market, the addition of more salary cap is going to be a huge benefit. We talked a little bit about the U18 already. I think adding 2 players there candidly at this stage was a little premature. But I do think that there are items with the salary cap that we can grow. So I think the league is heading in the right direction. Bev takes all the good stuff. Jeez, please.
You looked at the draft on Friday. Are there any position groups that you think are maybe more stocked than others in terms of there's more to choose from, better players to choose from, than forward, midfield, defense, anything like that?
No, we put everyone in the buckets essentially and rated those. We do have a few irons in the fire, I guess is the cliche word that I keep hearing from everybody else in the NWSL. That or we're hoping to get done. I was hoping to get a trade done before I returned from Europe. Didn't happen. We're trying to get that done hopefully in the next 24 hours. So we do have some things that are coming that we're excited about. So from a draft perspective, I think if you can figure out what you're doing there, that'll help drive what we need positionally.
And you had experience working with Bev before as an assistant, but this early month and a half for being head coach, just what kind of immediate difference do you notice with her as a head coach?
Well, Bev doesn't sleep, I'll tell you that, because my phone goes all the time, which is great. No, she's a hard worker. She's incredibly energetic. I've seen it all around. People will run through walls. We had our broadcast call for the draft just earlier this morning, and people want to run through walls for Bev Yanez, and why wouldn't you? They're going through the interview process. She's unbelievable. And you saw it here. She's got much more personality than I do. So she's an absolutely incredible person. And we're excited by that. And our players cannot wait. We've already got 3 players who have returned that are on the field today. And then 1 more that I think is coming tomorrow. So we're excited for what the group's going to do. And them getting back early is something we haven't historically seen, according to everyone that's been here before me. So we think we're just gonna be able to hit the ground running.
Speaking of players returning, do you have an official report date for all players yet, or
January 22nd.
sooner or early?
I don't think it's as early as you think though, because it's only 6 weeks and we're gonna do two, which I think will be announced sometime. So we're gonna do a tournament abroad. And then another trip down to Florida or Arizona, excuse me. Was Florida at one point. So no, I think it's getting them back for 6 weeks is much less than the 9 weeks they were back last year.
Any chances of seeing a tournament abroad or anything in Florida on a streaming service?
I believe the tournament abroad will be streamed. I don't know if I'm giving you all the information here. I'm not supposed to.
I think this is the first time we've talked since the expansion draft and what it seemed like Page going to Utah, the way that was worded, there was negotiation there and a lot went down. But do you have any reaction to the current setup of the expansion draft and how it could be improved or anything like that?
I think we negotiated so the deadline was 9 a.m. Eastern time for the trade. We were on the phone, I think 10 to 12 times in that hour with Utah all the way up until I think I hung up finally at 9:08 when we couldn't get a deal done. I don't think it's fair to the players to go into the expansion draft that way, especially at the timing around the holidays. I'd like to see it abolished, candidly. That'll be controversial, I'm sure. But we'll continue to take it as it goes in 2026.
Theo, you want to go ahead?
Hey Ryan, thanks so much for your time today. I'm sure there's things you can't say, but are you fielding calls right now for that sixth pick in the draft? Are you contemplating trading it out? Are you listening to offers? Kind of give me a lay of the land right now for what your position is, staying, going, fielding calls from other teams on that sixth pick.
So we've either called or fielded calls from every team in the league in the last 24 hours, including agents that have called while we've been standing here. So it's just constant. I think right now people are trying to figure out the lay of the land and what the cost is going to be on those picks, especially with allocation money going away. So right now we're obviously very flexible in what we can and can't do, and I think hopefully we'll have some clarity on that in the next 72 hours.
I guess just to follow up on that, I like the way you said people are trying to figure out, what the price of a loaf of bread is, if you like. How do you figure that out? Do you wait? Are you playing a game of chicken? You wait for another trade to go through, and then you're like, okay, this is how much a first round draft pick costs, or what are the kind of mental gymnastics and mathematics that you're doing?
Yeah, I think when we made the trade with Bay, we were trying to do the same mathematical gymnastics, as you like to call it. I think historically you can look at that from a value of a draft pick, but also as you get closer to the draft, values are going to continue to skyrocket depending on the players that have come out. Obviously, that list is final now. For us, it's just trying to make the deal that makes the most sense for us in the short term and the long term. I want to make sure we protect the integrity of our group for the future. But if there's a player that Bev thinks can win a game or two, we're not afraid to go move up and make that selection.
Obviously, announcement that's in the process of maybe being made the draft. What do you like about the shape that you guys are creating in the direction of the club under Bev so far?
Yeah, her style of play is a little bit different than Kim. I'm excited about that. I think it's going to be really beneficial in this league. I think the players we're bringing in are noticeable names. They're national team players that we're excited about. I think from a internal in the league, you'll talk about LAG and Marissa Vigiano, those experiences and filling depth that we really needed and we struggled with toward the end of last year, especially with the Challenge Cup run. We needed those players. So I'm really excited about how this roster is shaping out. We're looking at about 26 on the roster. And we feel it's a really, really deep roster when you look at what we've lost and what we brought in. As I said, we're bringing back 80% of our minutes, 70% of our goals. I think if you can highlight some of those things and add to some of the problems that address some of the problems that we saw in 2023, I think this team's ready to skyrocket.
And I'll ask a question that you may not be able to answer, but I'll ask it anyway, just because I'm curious. When you get past the draft and you get into the kind of contract negotiation part of that, do you have any kind of insight, like you draft somebody at 6, like what number 5 got from a contract perspective, what number 7 got, if you're looking at that? Is there any kind of transparency into the league and kind of where people slide in from a salary structure?
No, there's no transparency in that regard. Now we see the salary caps now a little bit later, but in terms of negotiation, no, there is no guidebook, for instance. However, we've talked to so many agents that we kind of know we're targeting and what that's going to cost us. And we have I'm very fortunate to our ownership group for creating the financial flexibility to do what we need to do there.
You guys have had great success with high picks in the draft, whether it's Jalen, Savannah. How much do you think about that before you part with a pick in a trade, if you consider it, trying to value what you have done from similar spots?
Yeah, it's important to know, what those players can become. But at the same time, knowing what you're getting in return. If we're going to trade 2 draft picks, as an example, for a player, we know what we're getting back. So right now it's evaluating this year's class and what that looks like and going from there.
We're talking a little bit, maybe past the first couple of picks in the draft. Are you looking kind of at maybe the back end of the draft more at depth? It seems like they're probably pretty set from like a starter minute perspective, maybe with things that we get through the draft having an out, but kind of those last few picks are those ones that are going to build depth, or kind of what is your plan for those last few picks?
Yeah, we were really fortunate to have. I think we had the first NWSL Pro Day. This was never publicly announced, and now I'm publicly announcing it. But the Pro Day, we brought in 20 players that actually were here and had 3 sessions with Bev and our technical staff. And we saw kind of what that back end depth looks like there, that we targeted 3rd and 4th round picks in that. And we feel like we have a really good idea to fill based on that and seeing them in person. We think there's a huge correlation to seeing a player in person and on film and what you get out of it.
And you said that you were first. You think anybody else did that, or was that you think?
We think we're the first one to do it. We modeled it after the NFL, candidly, in the pro day of players coming in and seeing them before they're drafted. Because right now you're seeing everyone have open tryouts. To me, it's too late at that point. If I'm going to spend a draft pick, I want to see them in person. So I think we're the first NWSL team to ever do that.
I feel like when you got the job, you kind of came in and there's already so much in place. There's a lot going on. Now you have the benefit of an entire off season to see how it all goes. Just how different do you feel in this position now compared to when you first came in?
I thought the offseason was going to be a little quieter, a little bit. It hasn't been. No, I think we're really excited with Bev, with Mario. I should speak to that. Bev talked about the pathway, talked about the U18s. Theo, your question to Bev. I think the U18s are such an important piece. We have the only ECNL academy that's owned and operated by an NWSL team. And when we can tap into that now with Mario Sanchez leading that pathway, we already started working on it a little bit last season and now leading that in. I think we're really looking to take off. We have some great U18s coming in for preseason. We're super excited about from around the country. We feel like we now got kind of our feet underneath us. Our foundation was built in 2023 and now start to build the house. How do you build up from here? And I think we're going to take those steps to really skyrocket. I said this to a lot of players on calls. I think this club is on the cusp of something special. And you saw it here. I mean, look at the personality from Bev Yanez. How could you not want to play for her? So,
Were there any, I guess you don't have to name them specifically, were there any free agents that you were hoping to go after and it didn't materialize? Or are there any needs that you're hoping free agents would meet that maybe you need to go to the draft for instead?
we had a list of free agents that we spoke to that we felt really comfortable with. And I don't think any of them can be filled with a draft pick.
I think Bev hinted at this maybe, but is there maybe one additional member to the technical coaching staff that comes in?
Great question. I'm glad you asked that. Yes, we have one that's in the background check process. So we'll have 2 assistant coaches. And we also have a player experience person coming in that will now handle player needs off the field. And we're really excited about her addition as well. And then there's one more addition coming that I can't speak to at this time, but we're really excited about that because we think it'll help our players long term. So I think we'll add roughly 3 staff members in the course of this offseason. And I think that shows the investment from our ownership group and the commitment to growing race in Louisville. I'm gonna get out before I say anything more controversial.